Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Sir Thomas More, and today we get to hear from Sir Thomas More in what some versions call Act 3, Scene 1, what other versions call Act 3, Scene 2. And at this point in the play, he is Sir Thomas More. He has been knighted, he was then named to the Privy Council, and now he's even been promoted to be the Lord Chancellor, which is like, King -1 in terms of the hierarchy in England. Like he's really far up there now because he was able to quell the riots that were happening in the streets of London. He was able to just basically talk everybody out of that, and then on top of talking the rioters down from rioting, he was able to talk the king into granting them clemency, except for poor John Lincoln, who was so happy to take his sentence that he jumped off the gallows himself instead of waiting for somebody to push him. But anyway, so Surrey was there just a minute too late to save Lincoln. But all of the others were saved, and were so thankful to Sir Thomas More until they were reminded actually it was the king who granted you clemency, and then they're like, oh yes, long live the king. So now in this particular scene, and it would make sense for that to be the end of an act and this to be the start of a new act, but in either case, if you're going to call this Act 3, Scene 1 or Act 3, Scene 2, this could be a good place to come back after intermission if you want to put an intermission in. Because we also now start out with Sir Thomas More having a moment by himself on the stage. He comes out and there's some stuff around there, like there's a pillow with a scepter on it and blah, blah, blah. But it's just him having a moment to sort of contemplate what's going on in his life. And he says, "It is in heaven that I am thus and thus, and that which we profanely term our fortunes is the provision of the power above, fitted and shaped just to that strength of nature which we are born withal. Good God, that I, from such an humble bench of birth, should step as 'twere up to my country's head and give the law out there. I, in my father's life, to take prerogative and tithe of knees from elder kinsmen, and him bind by my place to give the smooth and dexter way to me that owe it him by nature. Sure, these things, not physicked by respect, might turn our blood to much corruption. But, More, the more thou hast, either of honor, office, wealth, and calling, which might excite thee to embrace and hub them, the more do thou in serpents' natures think them. Fear their gay skins with thought of their sharp state, and let this be thy maxim: to be great is when the thread of heyday is once spun, a bottom great wound up, great undone." Come on, sir, are you ready? So he's pondering the nature of things and how it's a little bit weird that he was, he came from a very humble home of no status, and here he is now the Lord Chancellor, and he's having a little bit of a moment of like, wow, crazy, this is nuts, that these are now my responsibilities. But he's also reminding himself to not let it go to his head, because he's like, the more you have of these things, the more you can want these things and feel like you deserve these things. So he gives himself the instruction to still be afraid of those things, to fear honor and office and wealth and calling and things like that, to keep him humble and to keep him in his place so that he doesn't get too out of hand, because he ends with basically, the higher they climb, the farther they fall. And he doesn't want to be the one to fall like that. Now, you can just take this as a monologue that exists in the middle of a play so that we can get an idea of his state of mind. But if you've read other Shakespearean plays or other plays from the era, you might also recognize that there could be some foreshadowing in this specific play, specifically with the, wow, I know how high I rocketed up and how fast. I sure hope I don't fall down now. What do we think's going to happen? But anyway, he ends it by turning to his servant Russell and saying, "Are you ready to go?" And Russell comes in dressed exactly like Moore. And tomorrow we're going to find out why. So I'll see you then. Mwah.